From the Iraqi parliament, people chanting and cheering, saying that they were prepared to die for their great uncle, as Saddam Hussein likes to be called. At any moment, let's go to the White House now, and at any moment, we'll be hearing from the White House and Ari Fleischer, who is the president's spokesman. As I said earlier, the correspondents were told to stand by, not to go home, to remain flexible. There's something called a lid. The lid was not on at the White House tonight. That meant that there could be additional news. But no one was talking. Vice President Cheney's in the White House with the president. Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Richard Myers, were at the White House earlier, and they went back across the river to the Pentagon. I'm joined here in the studios as we continue to keep this picture up by General Barry McCaffrey, who led an armored assault during Operation Desert Storm, General Mike Short, who is a veteran of a lot of tactical aircraft and ran the bombing campaign over Kosovo, and Vice Admiral Dennis McGinn, who was the former commander of the USS Ranger and a carrier pilot. Let's begin, General McCaffrey, with you about timing. This would be an unusual time. Generally, we make these strikes in the middle of the night. If, in fact, something is going on now, are you surprised that it could come during daylight hours?
I think this would be one of the most unusual things I've ever encountered. You can't get strategic surprise. You can't get operational surprise. So if they're actually doing this, then they will absolutely have stunned the Iraqis. Not a one of them would assume this would happen. Just prior to dawn, overwhelming surprise.
And Mike Short, what would be your concerns as an Air Force commander of flying these kinds of missions during daylight, which we're about to see there?
Tom, I would feel I'm giving up the advantage I've got. I own the night. Stealth assets, the B-2 and the 117. We've seen the pictures of downtown Baghdad. The sun is coming up. 117s, B-2s will be visible. I'd not want to give that up.
Is it possible that what we're doing here is prepping the battlefield, as Jim Miklaszewski said, and this is not the first wave of what will be the opening stage of the war?
Tom, it's certainly possible, but we have been told so many times, shock and awe, to just bomb a few targets and prep the battlefield and then back off for 14 hours while we wait for darkness is not my idea of shock and awe.
And Admiral McGinn, you've been both a carrier pilot and a commander of a carrier. What about from the Navy's point of view? It's a long way to fly from the Gulf up to Baghdad, for one thing.
It is, but thank goodness for the great jointness of Navy and Air Force. We have great tanker support. Tom, I think if this is the beginning of the campaign, it's probably because of the investments we made in technology, specifically standoff weapons and their accuracy and their rapid targeting since the Gulf War.
All right, let's go to NBC Jim Miklaszewski, who's been listening to all of this, and he is getting some information as well. Peter Arnett in Baghdad. Let's go to Peter.
Tigris River around the presidential palace. This is clearly an indication the Iraqis are under the impression that they're under attack. Here again, you can hear the audio of that anti-aircraft fire. The Iraqis do have surface-to-air missiles from Soviet-designed systems, SAM-2s, 3s, 8s. They have much anti-aircraft ACAC, have machine guns, heavier devices to fire into the sky. As of yet, no bombing, but intense fire that we're hearing right now. Mainly this fire is on the southern part of the city, nothing in the center of the city yet, but the southern extremities of the city, much fire here.
I see some reflected light as well that looks like it could be some kind of ordnance exploding on the ground, as well as the AAA fire that you're talking about. Are you seeing any of that, Peter?
I'm not getting a very good signal from good audio from you, Tom, if you're listening to me. But now very similar scenes from the Gulf War of 1991 and the bombing of 1998, traces going into the sky. Clearly preparation. The radar, presumably the Iraqis have picked up something moving towards this location, and they're firing to intercept it if they can.
All right, Peter, I'm just going to continue to talk, and then when I call for you. I'll ask you to come in as best you can, even if you're only hearing me faintly. We want to remind everyone that we do expect now, I'm told, to hear from the president before too long at the White House. NBC Jim Miklaszewski, as you look at these pictures, tell us what you're hearing at the Pentagon.
Well, Tom, we're getting somewhat of a confused picture from various sources in the U.S. government and the U.S. military. What we're told, Tom, is that whatever is planned tonight, whether it's prepping the battlefield or whether it's the start of the war, that the initial attack that we're talking about tonight would apparently involve small numbers. That was the description given to us a short time ago, small numbers of possible B-52s, possibly stealth fighters, even possibly cruise missiles. There were still some people, as of just a short time ago here in the Pentagon, who were describing this still as prepping the battlefield. Now I heard from our panel of experts early that this is not shock and awe, but I can tell you that we were also advised very early on that any invasion of Iraq by the U.S. would be totally unconventional. A lot of this would be unexpected. And there were times, we are told, when the U.S. would act
this, quick decisions on the fly, audibles, if you will, that can take advantage of opportunity targets when they present themselves.
All right, Admiral McGinn, we're going to take our audience back through what we were all witness to about an hour ago at this time. This was the scene in Baghdad before the sun came up. Peter Arnett, who's working for National Geographic Explorer on NBC News, was watching all of this. Let's listen to the tape and watch it first, and then I'll talk to Peter.
There's initial sirens here. Then we had some anti-aircraft fire in the eastern side of the city, an explosion in the center of the city, which could have been anti-aircraft firing into the sky. That was 5 minutes ago. Nothing's happened since then.
Peter Arnett, now it is dawn, and I don't know what scene you have. I can just tell you that we're looking out over some of the memorials and the broad corniche of Baghdad and to a fairly clear sky there, some cumulus clouds. What are you seeing now on the streets of Baghdad, and are you hearing anything on local radio, or is there anything at all on television?
Well, what we during President Bush's speech, Tom, there was just the constant rumble of anti-aircraft fire again to the north and the northeast. Just continuing. There was some loud explosions, but they could have been some of the heavy surface-to-air missile material the Iraqis have. But for about 10 minutes, it was firing. Now, in the center of the city, which was, of course, the target of the original Gulf War, when after a few minutes of preparatory observation, apparently by aircraft, there was an enormous series of attacks that went on for hours. Here, the center of the city has been untouched at this point. There's been some anti-aircraft fire. Clearly, whatever action there has been to the northeast and to the northwest. And as I said, 10 minutes of pretty heavy anti-aircraft fire while the president was speaking. Otherwise, there is daylight in Baghdad. Very few people on the streets, actually no automobiles. Now, I don't know whether they're being stopped from coming into the center of the city, but a few police cars around, all quiet, though, and we're overlooking the Tigris River towards the presidential palace, which everyone was under the impression would be the main target area. That has not been touched, Tom. Either have any of the other potential targets in the center of Baghdad.
All right, thanks very much, Peter Arnett in Baghdad tonight. NBC's Brian Williams, my colleague, is in Kuwait City. Brian, we were talking earlier tonight about the possibility that as those planes lifted off from the carriers out in the Persian Gulf, you may be able to get a sense of them flying over the Kuwaiti territory. Any unusual activity in the skies over Kuwait?
We've been so keen, Tom, to listening for any of that all evening long. No, it was there was no evidence this evening that there were overflights. I had the room open and the door open in my hotel room and the window open, and we had an incident out on the street here tonight, made everyone jump 3 feet in their chairs. The aircraft, when we pinpoint exactly which categories and map out where they were all stationed, the airspace will then all make sense to us. But